very good afternoon and welcome to DNA 23. We are broadcasting live from Astro. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is becoming clear that the digital future is already here. Technology is pervasive and it impacts every aspect of our lives. The digital world is fast evolving too. It can be quite difficult to keep up. This is what DNA 23 is all about, that is to recognize the challenges and also to seize the opportunities the digital world has to offer. Now this afternoon, for the very first time, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim will be sharing his ideas with the Rakyat on how to better the Malaysian digital economy by injecting a new dimension and also to build on the efforts of the Multimedia Super Corridor. We are also very pleased today to have the Minister of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia, Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh Deo, with us to share his thoughts on how the DNA 23 initiative can complement his ministry's efforts to position Malaysia for the digital future. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Yang Berhormat Gobind Singh Deo. Nice to see you again. You're right here. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have seen in the video earlier, digital is here to stay. It is the lifeblood of all industries and our economy. But is Malaysia ready for this digital future? That is the question. Now, I think we are all very excited today because for the very first time, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim will be speaking about DNA 23. And we are also very pleased to have YB Gobind to be here today because we know that your ministry has been vigorously pushing the digital agenda, for example, improving broadband access and also to develop the e-commerce or technopreneurship among our young businessmen. So these are all very instrumental key building blocks to support the growth of our digital economy. And with that, YB, the stage is yours for your welcoming remarks. Thank you very much.
So I'm supposed to read out. Is there no podium? Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. It's good to be on stage with you again, a long time since. Always a pleasure to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us who are present this afternoon, thank you very much for being part of this audience. Also to the audience out there, terima kasih kerana bersama-sama kita pada petang ini. And I think at the end of the day, all of us recognize the fact that the digital economy, certainly the new driver of our national economy. Yeah? Digital innovations, we always talk about. Technology pervade. As well as intrude on, we look at every aspect of our life. And we recognize the fact that the digital environment today becomes what we can say the mainstream for those who grew up with technologies that have the rest of us, and all the rest of us have to learn about and adopt to. Now, we speak about digital adaptation. And of course, this is something that is a mainstream topic because we all know, at the end of the day, and from the records that I have here, it has a huge fiscal impact on our economy. 2017, digital economy contributed to 18.3%, or Malaysian ringgit, 247.1 billion ringgit to the country's GDP. And this, of course, is expected to contribute to almost 20% of the GDP by the year 2020. So we can see how it is significant and is something that we should actually focus on in the years to come. Now, when we look at the communications and multimedia industry, it becomes what I would term, and of course in my ministry, we look at it as the key pillar of digital economy, which would bring, of course, about serious and great investments, boost our technology, adoption, of course, will recognize and realize tax income, and this, of course, improves the position of the government. And of course, importantly as well, I think something people must recognize is that when we adopt the digital technology, there's a potential of us creating thousands of jobs. And I think this is something that is very, very significant when we look at questions of and surrounding our economy today. Now, of course, we also look at how it is we have initiatives that impact on the industry, and how it is my ministry has chosen to improve what we call the digital economy by initiating certain initiatives which really can be broken down into 5 different building blocks. Now, I've spoken about this many times, but I think it's important for us to recognize and to repeat so that we remind ourselves that when we look at digital economy, what do we need in terms of ministry, in terms of government, in terms of our contribution? How do we play our role in making sure that you, the people of Malaysia, are able to actually take full advantage of all of the benefits that the whole industry provides, in particular when we talk about the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which really now has taken over the global stage. So, what do we have? As far as the ministry is concerned, 5 blocks that we look at in terms of us delivering what I would call infrastructure to the people so that they can take part, engage, and benefit from this economy. What are they? First, and I think everyone around the room and across the world will recognize that in order for us to succeed, we must make sure that we have infrastructure. Infrastructure is key. And not just infrastructure, we must look at infrastructure from a different point of view. Particularly, we have to make sure that it's pervasive. We want infrastructure that expands across the country, but not just infrastructure that exists. When you have infrastructure, what do you look for? You look for infrastructure which provides you with quality broadband. Infrastructure which provides you with affordable broadband. And of course, in this age and today, the concerns that we have globally, also infrastructure which provides you with a secure environment. So these are aspects that we are looking at, and this is the first part of the initiatives that we're taking in respect of the 5 blocks that I have mentioned earlier. Second, if you have infrastructure, and I keep on mentioning this, yes, we say infrastructure is key, but if you have infrastructure alone, but people do not know how to take advantage of this infrastructure, people do not know what the infrastructure can provide them, how it is they can strengthen themselves using this infrastructure, then I think the infrastructure in itself will not be able to bring any kind of advantage or will not be able to add value to the person's life. So we have to look at tech talent development. Now this is very, very important. Tech talent development is a great area. Now, as all of you all know, when you talk about the digital economy, you talk about a range of areas affected and impacted by digital economy. So again, how does the ministry help? The ministry has to help, as I said, by providing infrastructure, building tech talent, providing an environment where tech talent can evolve, tech talent can build itself, and of course you can create an ecosystem where you have a group of people coming together telling you, look, this is what the world of today requires. This is what the world of today requires for us to succeed. This is what the world of today requires if Malaysia is going to be placed on a global stage. And I think in order for us to succeed in this aspect, the government has to change its approach. Instead of us sitting back and waiting in the ministries for people to come back and tell us what we should be doing, I think we have to actually take this initiative to go down, meet the people, a change of approach, a change of attitude, where the government must tell the industry that we are prepared to help. We want to hear you out. We want to know what the problems that you have are. We want to know why these problems haven't been solved in the past and how it is we can work together to try and solve these problems so that you have an environment that assists you in building the digital economy of this country. That's number 2. Number 3, we're talking about cyber-safe practices and, of course, increased cybersecurity vigilance. I think all of us here have read and we are all concerned about security issues. We all have infrastructure, we have networks. Question is, how safe is it? As you and I know, one of the things that we look at today is data. Every time we go onto the computer, every time we actually log in to a site and we exchange information, the data that we put on the net is actually stored. Question is it safe? If you are going to adopt a a system whereby we encourage people, for example, suggestions of digital signature, digital ID, and then of course, internet banking. You are talking about a scenario whereby you're going to have to trust the system with this information that you have. Now you have to trust it because it forms the basis of how you operate so that you can succeed in the industry. That is something that you have to look at. But the question is it safe? So I think Malaysia, we have to take security seriously, and I have always emphasized that. I've just come back from a trip to Barcelona and of course to London. And the focus there, the major focus was actually looking at how it is we can enhance and improve cybersecurity so that we can ensure that the ecosystem, that it is safe. And the initiatives that the government pushes ahead with, encouraging people to take advantage and to take part and play a role in this industry is something that you can commit to. That's number 3. Then number 4, we want to look at specifically developing platforms and enablers, such as, of course, as I said earlier, digital ID, open data, what do you call, and so forth. Now again, development of platforms is something which is very, very important. Not only because it is happening all over the world and it is something which we have to keep up with. By the end of the day, I look at a system here in which we find that we are capable of coming up with solutions or coming up with suggestions of our own. I'm minded that, I'm limited in time. So let me just move on to the last one. Of course, the last area of impact, and I think this is very significant, will be how it is the government makes policies which must include legislation and industry structures that will support the growth of the digital industry. This is how it is we look at an ecosystem. This is how we look at government playing a role in inspiring the people of Malaysia to take up the challenge so that we build an ecosystem in this country which is on par with ecosystems of the world. We want to put Malaysia on the global stage. We want to tell the world that we in Malaysia have the capability and we are able to succeed. And of course, that the government is doing its part, playing its role in ensuring that we build an ecosystem in which all of us here can be proud to stand as Malaysians. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, YD. Infrastructure, ecosystem, and talent. And I think the talent point is very, very important because, having a mobile phone or a computer enough is not enough to join the e-economy. Having the know-how and digital literacy is very essential too. And with that, I'd like to invite Datuk Seri Anwar on stage to tell us more about this DNA 23 initiative and how is it going to shape Malaysia's digital future.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih Cynthia. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Saudara Gobind telah memulakan memberi kerangka keutamaan yang harus dilaksanakan oleh Kementerian Beliau dan Kerajaan. Dan saya hanya bertugas untuk menambah kerana dukungan kerajaan jelas, tetapi apa yang saya lakukan ialah untuk mendengar puluhan startups, syarikat IT yang baru, kerana saya dalam beberapa tahun yang lalu ini sangat lemah pengetahuan mengenai digital ekonomi dan IT sebab saya lama istirahat di Sungai Buloh. Tetapi saya memanfaatkan waktu selepas itu untuk menumpukan. Saya bincang dengan Tun Mahathir selaku Perdana Menteri dan menyatakan bahawa kita telah mulakan inisiatif besar 90-an dulu dengan Multimedia Super Corridor. Tapi sekarang kita lihat imperatif baru. Kemudahan, sophistication yang ada dalam Internet of Things, Big Data. Oh, ini semua istilah mengejutkan bagi saya pada peringkat awal. Tetapi ia mendesak dan itulah sebabnya mengapa setelah berbincang dengan kementerian dan pelbagai pihak terutama sektor swasta dan anak-anak muda milenial ini bahawa perlu ada suatu agenda khusus yang harus dilaksanakan sekarang, bukan rancangan masa depan, rancangan sekarang untuk diambil tindakan segera, iaitu DNA 23. Jadi ada beberapa keutamaan dan kebimbangan yang saya akan telusuri dan jelaskan. Now, dear friends, I must first express my profound thanks and gratitude for Minister Gobind, because Saudara Gobind has taken that pledge and commitment, and I think he had done remarkably well in assuring the general Malaysian public. The only issue he has to grapple with, of course, is internet access. From Port Dickson to Permata Ampau to some other areas, which he is trying, and I appreciate some of his immediate limitations. Now, as I said, that sojourn in Sungai Buloh prison was a difficult period because absolutely no access to what you call as the new economy or digital economy or IT. Zero access. So I have taken a lot of effort here and internationally to listen to the millennials, the startup companies, the established companies, international and local and domestic, and now realize that there is a new imperative, a new demand, dictate of the time, that we must seize the moment. We must make sure that this new agenda, the nation's new trajectory for survival as a nation, that is to initiate a people's awareness in terms of DNA 23. Now, we have clear, after elaborate discussions, of course, major thrust. Firstly, we talk about prosperity, of course, and a shared economy. See, the popular misperception or misconception they got to digital economy, that it will create this new divide between the urban elites and the poor masses, between the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural, particularly the rural heartland. Now, we have to address this issue, firstly, as Saudara Gobind has said, the issue of democratization of access. Now, democratization of access, both in digital economy, in education, quality education, quality access, because issue of instantaneity and affordability, of course, are key concerns. Now, I do not share this concern about the fear of growing or increasing gap between the rich and poor. If we, I'm not talking about only the government, but the companies, the most successful one, take into consideration this concern and embark on this aggressive reform program. We have seen that. And we have seen that happening in a way because we have, other than Grab, you have Dropa, you have MyLorry, you have different stages which cater for different crowd, B40 and the middle class. We have seen, for example, this hyper-localization, as I said, some of these companies, iFlix, for example, in its attempt to deal with local demands and dictates, and in their ability to attract new players, these young technopreneurs. But this has got to be expanded, and the government, of course, need to give all the support possible. And I think based on the experience of Estonia, in terms of e-government, and also Qatar, in terms of e-governance. The issue is also not only financial or incentives, but to create an environment that's clearly supportive. The leaders and the media should give the entire access and focus to support this arrangement, so that this, therefore, known and accessible to most people. Now, what about fishermen, farmers? They can, of course, utilize, because you have seen the efforts in some of countries, including in some pockets in India. I spent some time in Bangalore, in China, to look at this initiative, because you can't find this in New York, because then it's higher end. I did spend some time with the big companies there. But for us, for Malaysia to succeed, we'll have to tap the experiences of parts of China, Bangalore, because or Estonia for that matter, because these efforts and initiatives are more relevant to our country and our effort to, again, to deal with the issue of shared prosperity. And the second issue, of course, issue of governance. There are concerns whether the new apps introduced, this digital economy, will actually help in fostering what we believe in as e-democracy. And I think it is very critical for our country to give that sort of space. But the contestation of ideas should not be deemed purely to benefit this elite cycle. I mean, you have seen a number of times where I'm quite cynical of elites. I'm not cynical, but I'm just reminding the elites must not continue to ignore and marginalize the vast majority, the rural and those in the heartland. Because there will be, and you would invite a backlash if you don't show enough care and concern. The only difference I have is I do not view this as using the racial card, which some of us tend to be still tied with the old mindset. The issue is access. The issue is opportunities. John Rawls talked about justice as fairness, to allow all segments of the community, the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural and the heartland, opportunities in this regard. I mentioned in the first case where you can deal with it. I mean, I was informed by Google on the initiative for the Rungus sub-tribe in Sabah to allow and give them that opportunity to introduce their product, beads, to the international community, and in that process enhance their income and living conditions as a result. Now, on the issue of governance, I think if we view this positively, then we realize that opportunities, access should be both, and there must be a plain, effective campaign, a process of dissemination of information by the ministry, of course, and by those involved in these companies. I think we must now start a new initiative, not only the narrative, the initiative, that any successful company, Malay-led or Chinese-led, Indian-led, Sabah, Sarawak, regardless, must make an attempt to go down and connect with the masses in the rural area. And I think this should be something which is, to my mind, an exceptional enterprise in Malaysia, where digital economy is actually a popular enterprise involving everybody. And this, I believe, would immediately dispel the notion of race bias or urban bias, and would then dismantle that old paradigm and mindset and narrative that people finally have to resort to, again, the race card. We have gone far ahead, and I don't believe we should be turning back. Those who have the access and the power and the influence should then lead this narrative, have the courage to dispel that notion, which I think should be deemed to be obsolete. But having said so, we are not ignoring the plight of the poor and the marginalized. And we cannot accept a country continue to grow that condone corruption, abuse of power, whether it is political parties, civil society, or companies. Now, the third issue, priority, is, of course, ethics, and values, and governance, because I think there is also this concern that this is globalization, and therefore you can have this new knowledge, expertise in terms of Internet of Things or artificial intelligence that may disregard issue of values or ethics. Now, in our context, in our society, we can make a difference. To us, concern for the welfare of humanity at large, the issue of justice, must remain paramount. After all, what is success, economic advance, without the concern, the care for humanity at large? And I think, to my mind, you may consider this quite irrelevant when we talk about digital economy or DNA 23. But to me, if you want to make a difference, we can excel and have the expertise and strive for excellence in this specific discipline, but we cannot disregard humanity. And they call T.S. Eliot rhetorically said, where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge, and where is the knowledge we have lost in information? I think it's still relevant, although he has said that decades ago. But the issue of knowledge, expertise, and wisdom and humanity must remain clear to us, Malaysians. And of course, if you talk about digital economy, if we strive enough in this direction, I think we can become a more attractive destination for investments. Because you are talking about transparency, you talk about accountability, you're talking about the right of citizen to start this, we actually encourage contestation of ideas as against this new sort of effort to limit the scope of discussion, to instill fear, the culture of fear. Before, the culture of fear promoted by the government. Now, we still have the culture of fear promoted by segments of society that start playing the race card or religious bigotry. Both can be damning and would result in instability, political, social, in this country. So I have given some thought to this, not my idea essentially. I've listened to hours and hours every week to so many of you, some brilliant minds out there who have emphasized and appealed to me, do something. Make sure that the digital agenda becomes part of our DNA of Malaysians, not only the tech companies, not only the elites in the urban areas, but a DNA for all Malaysians to now emerge as a more competitive, knowledgeable society. And I have great hopes in this, and I would appeal to you for full support in this endeavor. It's not an Anwar agenda. I must concede that I embarked on this, initially very reluctantly, because I know my limits. I can talk about governance and philosophy better. But I think in all humility, I must say that after listening, reflecting, I realize that if we do not take immediate measures to propel this emergence and awareness in this digital native agenda, I believe that we will not be able to be or to remain a competitive country. Our state of economy and society is certainly in dire need of a major reform, a major push. And I would certainly want to be a small player together with you all to initiate this DNA 23 agenda. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Datuk Seri. Now, Datuk Seri spoke a bit about contestation of ideas, and we would like to hear your ideas. Please join in the conversation. You have that little card with you. Scan the QR code and send us your questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to the main part of the event. We've received quite a number of questions for both YB Gobind and also Datuk Seri Anwar. And these are questions from the audience. Some of them are pretty tough, and I hope both of our guests are ready for this. Okay, let's get down to it.
Give me understanding. The difficult ones, you answer.
I'll keep it balanced. All right, the first one is for you, Datuk Seri. Yeah? Okay, this is quite tough. This person wants to know about DNA 23. He says that Malaysia seems to be very keen on taglines. You know, we've had Vision 2020, and then we've had TN50. How is DNA 23 different from all this?
Now, DNA 20 is for here and now. Just start and do it. I'm not talking about projections for the future, a new tagline, not necessarily. I'm just saying that the ministry, companies, and concerned citizens like me just embark on a program now. It's not a projection. It is, as I said, it is an imperative for us to act now, because I think we just cannot afford to delay another month if we want to succeed as a country.
All right, Datuk Seri, looking at the previous visions that have been established, what are some of the areas do you think DNA 23 will be able to address or even to bring forth in the new digital future?
Now, certainly we have seen so many other initiatives. As I said, I mentioned this hyper-localization like Grab, but also the smaller ones like Drupal and MyLorry, and many others in this field, which we as a society must continue to publicize and support. Then, of course, issue of training and the curriculum. Creative thinking, critical thinking is required. Otherwise, we just become like sacred cows and robots. And we cannot initiate. I've listened to many of these companies who say, yes, we are quite well trained, but when it comes to certain expertise like programmers, we are actually way down. I said, it cannot happen because we have the best universities in the world. I said, that's what I was told. So which means there is clearly a mismatch. Now we can't wait for a review of a curriculum for the deans to discuss, deliberate. No. If you wait for another 3 years, they will become obsolete. Though there's certain disciplines that require an immediate action. So I think this will certainly use our influence to start talking to the universities and the ministries to say, look, some of the disciplines, particularly IT, must change now, and to prepare the students, and also to make sure that it is a continuous process upon graduation, so that the students who have been trained in that particular field have some access and ideas about changes. And this is where we require the intervention and the support of companies. We're not talking about philosophy of culture. I say, don't ask companies, because these are the expertise they may not have. But when we talk about IT, Internet of Things, big data, you have to ask them, because otherwise we will produce graduates they will not be able to comprehend, or certainly not up to the mark. I'm not exaggerating. I've met at least 6 or 7 big companies who just say that we love your workers, they're very disciplined, knowledgeable, but they are not up to the mark as compared to some of the graduates from Australia. Of course, I resent that idea because I have been convinced, listening to these reports about the best universities in the world. But I have to acknowledge, with all humility, that we have to make the adjustments necessary.
All right, Datuk Seri. Now this question is in Bahasa, actually. This person wants to know that bagaimana agenda DNA 23 mampu merapatkan atau mengurangkan jurang pendapatan antara masyarakat bandar dan luar bandar. And for our foreign audiences, what it means is that how would this DNA 23 agenda address the income gap between the rural and urban societies?
Saya sangat terkesan dengan hal ini kerana saya tidak mahu mengulangi kesilapan di beberapa negara lain di mana penguasaan teknologi digital ini telah menyebabkan kesenjangan di antara golongan kaya dan miskin. Oleh demikian, beberapa inisiatif sekarang dilakukan oleh kelompok bawah B40 ini ataupun pertengahan harus diberi dukungan supaya mereka dapat pendedahan yang cukup. Keduanya, bila kita sebut tentang kesenjangan, kita bicara tentang penternak, peraih, peladang, ya, dan nelayan. Dan kita ada cara, nelayan jual di pantai setelah menangkap ikan di Tanjung Karang atau Kuala Selangor dengan harga pasaran di Kuala Lumpur. Kita boleh terima sedikit perbezaan, tapi perbezaan itu keterlaluan tingginya. Dengan maklumat yang ada dan kemudahan yang ada, kita boleh dorong sebahagian orang mungkin beli dan dengan sedemikian boleh meningkatkan pendapatannya. And I think this is an issue that is very passionate to me, that the issue of fishermen and farmers and the small traders and the workers. I think with access to information, for example, the price, they can certainly help. And this has been proven in many countries. I've seen in India and China, where they can actually influence the direction because they know the price. Now, if there is a small markup, they can understand the rule of the middleman. But if there's huge markup, then they realize they've been cheated. So that's where I think the issue of moral suasion and the influence of government departments come in. And I think this is, of course, a very important area. Education, whatever criticism we may have against the past policies, we cannot deny the fact that there has been effective social mobility through educational initiatives. And, but we will have to instill more. And this, of course, cross the income levels of parents because the opportunity given to all students. Then you have, as I said, startups or the more successful companies. When they, for example, they start having the initiative that permeates into the lower level or the B40, then I think the government can come and intervene and give certain incentive to allow them to do so and to be more effective in that. And I think through that process, we can effectively prove that the digital transformation that's taking place, the DNA 23, makes a world of difference because you actually help propel the industry, at the same time encourage this trickle down to the rural heartland.
At the end of the day,
Tambah sedikit.
ya, silakan.
Mungkin. Kalau kita lihat, saya setuju apa yang disebut tadi. Tapi satu perkara yang kita lihat, kalau kita lihat kepada rural areas dan bagaimana kita boleh bridge the income divide. Satu perkara yang kita lihat melalui teknologi adalah robotics dan AI. Kalau kita lihat, mungkin kita bicara berkenaan dengan nelayan tadi. Kalau kita lihat kepada apa yang sedia ada sekarang, model-model baru, these models allow for a reduction of wastage. Maka dia gunakan AI, dia gunakan robotics, dia menunjukkan bagaimana kita boleh ada misalnya fish farming tanpa pekerja, di mana ada precision. So dia tahu, dia boleh gauge, dia boleh tengok arus air, dia boleh tengok bagaimana ikan itu sehat atau tidak. Makanan tu ikan tu, dia tak akan bagi makanan di mana ada pembaziran. So this will result in higher productivity and less cost. So these are factors which you have to take into account. So aspek robotik dan aspek AI ini sangat penting. Kalau kita nak lihat bagaimana kita, bila kita lihat kepada kawasan luar bandar dan sebagainya, ianya boleh bantu setakat kita mengurangkan pembaziran dan kita maximize productivity supaya kita boleh increase pendapatan. Saya rasa ini adalah perkara yang kita perlu lihat secara terbuka. Kita kena, we have to accept that these are areas which can increase and of course assist what you call to bridge that divide.
All right. Digital inclusivity, I guess that's what you're talking about. We know that the fourth IR really has the potential to help not only raise income levels, improve quality of life, but to touch on inclusivity, naturally an important step to opening up the access to the B40s and the lower income household is to have access to internet, broadband. I think your ministry is doing a lot on that front. Perhaps you can share with us what are some of the initiatives and maybe challenges that you face in this industry.
Izinkan saya, ramai yang tak selesa dengan inisiatif yang saya ambil kerana kita ini menekankan perlu untuk kita kurangkan kos dan perlu untuk kita tingkatkan kelajuan when it comes to broadband. So we have initiatives to try and reduce costs and to increase speeds. But at the same time, we have to recognize, as I said earlier, quality in terms of what it is we provide. And this is the reason why I always say to the telcos, you must remember that this is something which is close to the hearts of many. You must understand the demands of the customers, particularly those who use the internet to sustain the industries that they have. And this is the reality of it is, I think the telcos have to recognize that. And they have to create infrastructure that will actually benefit their customers. So it's not just about sales now. It's not just about saying, can we sell a particular product? But it's about them looking at things and trying to ensure people that I'm giving you a product that is sustainable, of great quality. And you must not forget, kalau kita ada infra yang berkualiti tinggi, kos berpatutan, dan kelajuan berpatutan, we will also attract foreign interest. Because ramai daripada luar negara itu, bila mereka buat keputusan whether or not to invest in Malaysia, satu perkara yang mereka lihat is connectivity. So ini perkara-perkara yang harus kita halusi, kita kena lihat dengan serius. And I think this has all been somehow or another not ignored, but overlooked in the past. And I have told the telcos, we have to come down hard. I want to improve them so that they can improve on their own services and at the end of the day, succeed. This is by and large what it is we have had to do in terms of providing digital broadband. The other thing that I would like to say is this. Datuk Seri, saya ke merata tempat di dunia ini, di mana kita ada conference, kita berbincang, menteri-menteri, ministers meet, be it ASEAN or otherwise. We all speak about infra. But one of the things that I notice is that kita kena faham bahawa when we speak about infra and telcos, we must understand that they have business models. Right? So they have to answer to their shareholders as well. Which means that they will focus on areas which are dense in population so that they can get the numbers and it's ultimately commercially viable for them. I think we all understand this. This is how it works. And we can't fault them for that. So what happens, ironically, is that areas that do not have huge populations are neglected. Jadi kita lihat kawasan pedalaman, kawasan terpencil. Bila kita minta supaya ianya tempat itu diberikan infrastruktur, maka they will say, look, it's not productive to us, it's not commercially viable. So what do we do? Do we say, okay, fine, because we are going to be dictated by commercial terms, kita biar saja. Tempat-tempat yang tidak ada tarikan dari segi potensi komersial, kita biar. Or does the government have a duty to say to the telcos, look, as far as we're concerned, there must be this concept of equality, the human aspect of it. In other words, if we want to improve education in Malaysia, I'm taking education as just one example. We want to make sure that all the schools are wired up so that we can bring education, as I said earlier, develop talent in schools. We have to do it across the board. We cannot say that education is going to be of higher standards in KL because ada access kepada internet. But when it comes to the rural areas, it's okay, we carry on as how it is. Because what you're going to do is you're going to create a generation that's left behind. Dan saya rasa kepada saya, fokus kerajaan perlu diberikan kepada kita cari. And that's the reason why one of the things that we have done, Datuk Seri, is from previously they have focused on fiber only. So it's National Fiberization Plan. But we have changed it. National Fiberization and Connectivity Plan. By reason of which we are now looking at, we understand, fiber is probably the best, it is the best way to wire. But it takes time and it's costly. And many people don't want to go to the internal areas, the rural areas. So kita nak buat macam mana? We have to recognize that. Last mile connectivity is important. Nowadays they're talking, people don't talk about mile anymore. People talk about even smaller areas. So how do we do things? We have to look at other choices. Satellite. Saya pergi US, saya lihat teknologi balloon. Balloon pun ada. Balloon dia besar. The aeroplanes fly at 35,000 feet. But at 65,000 feet, you got balloons that are hanging there. Instead of a tower from ground up, we have towers from up down. This is just an example. People are also talking about the same technology, but using drones. Drones that can hover for a long, long time. I'm sure all of you all know about it. But why aren't we talking about this? So I think at the end of the day, this is something that we need to look at, and this is something that I'm doing. As far as I'm concerned, I want everyone to have equal access. I want everyone to have equal opportunity. I want to make sure that even in the rural areas, people can come up to me and say, I've got high-speed connectivity, and I recognize the benefit this gives me. We had a project recently, a pilot project Datuk Seri kita buat dekat Jasin. Orang tanya saya, kenapa Jasin? Because Jasin is an area in which we have the different extremes. Kita ada kawasan bandar, luar bandar, kita ada kawasan perkampungan, kita ada kawasan felda. So we were able to use technology from TNB. We wired up. Saya pergi sendiri to the felda areas, and in the houses they got speeds up to 100 meg. Saya pergi warung. Sana ada satu cerita. Warung itu dia kata, look, using internet now, productivity has increased.
But sorry.
Sila.
You see, what you're saying is the issue of governance.
Correct.
How is it that we allow, give license to telcos without these conditions established?
This is how it's been.
Yeah, so that is a problem.
Setuju.
Yeah. So I think...
They are looking quite nervously around here.
You're right.
So now, I mean, you don't impose conditions, so they make the money. Infrastructure is not part of the a factor put in place. Now we want to impose now, so they start. Okay. So I appreciate your, resolve, and the courage, and good luck to you, because.
Now this is why there's a change in policy. So what we have done, once there's change in policy, then of course the telcos have to sit with us. And I must also say here, we have to be fair to everyone. The telcos have actually been very cooperative.
Yes.
Bila saya sebut sebegini, they are cooperative. And when I speak about this internationally, you find that people actually come up to you and say, look, that makes sense. Because a lot of countries are different in terms of their geography. So some countries don't appreciate the problem that we have. But I think as far as Malaysia is concerned, I think we need to lead the way. We need to show that we are committed, and ultimately policies that we adopt, hopefully other countries will also look at in trying to decide how it is they look at their way forward in terms of technology in their countries. So, itu jawaban saya lah.
You may say YB. Okay, I'll move on to our next question from one of our audience. This is regarding future of work. Machines will be able to carry out more jobs than humans in future. We know that hundreds of millions of jobs will be lost, but also some will be created. This question is for you, Datuk Seri. Are you concerned about job displacements due to technology, and how would DNA 23 address this?
We have to acknowledge that there will be displacements. That's a fact. But we've also to realize or to understand the fact that there are huge potentials. I mean, even your ministry or MDEC or Statistics Department suggests that we have possibility of 800,000 new jobs, which would certainly settle most of the problems of our graduate unemployment, on condition that they are well trained. I mean, in 2020, you require new 800,000 jobs, which means the issue of displacement is a reality which we have to accept, but we will have to be more proactive in seeking a solution.
Saya tambah, I think the other aspect we've got to look at is to make sure that we have initiatives to reskill. Jadi bila kita ada technology will advance, and over a period of time we will find that machines take over jobs that ordinarily would be done by people, particularly when it comes to the jobs that involve the Ds, the dangerous, dirty, and so forth. Tapi dalam masa yang sama, kalau kita lihat maklumat yang kita ada, in the years to come, if technology moves the way it is, it will also provide new opportunities. I give an example, Datuk Seri. It's something I was reading, and I was able to verify with some people. In some countries, they have what is termed as the gig economy, which basically means that you are able to allow people to trade from their homes. Maknanya kalau, for example, looking at people who are not working, be it they, the elderly, single parents, and so forth. Because of technology, because of the ability for you to bring technology to them and the world markets to them and connect them, they are able to actually work from their homes. and they are able to actually participate. And this is a huge part of the economy, and it can also contribute significantly to the GDP. These are just examples. So I think, yes, the threat is there, people are concerned, but at the end of the day, that's where the world is moving. But we are able to deal with it in terms of reskilling, education. I think these are all important aspects. And of course, the government is looking at that very seriously. It's one of the things that my ministry is looking at. And hopefully, in time to come, we'll be able to come up with initiatives and, of course, also information which will assist people to try and understand the problem better.
These initiatives must be bold.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I think federal government, ministries, agencies, state governments must just embark on a more aggressive effort. I mean, PSDC Penang is an exception, but I think we need to have just too many of these initiatives. Otherwise, we'll be lagging behind. We express our concern, and very little is done. So I think DNA 23 should give that sort of
something that we're pushing.
Yeah, we'll push the minister and the ministry.
Well, perhaps to get your thoughts on education, because we talk about skills, right? We know that in future, high income, we talk about highly skilled workers will increase. The demand for highly skilled workers will increase, whereas the demand for low skilled workers will be largely replaced by automation, by robots, right? So there will be a hollow gap in between, in that area. What do you think are the steps needs to be taken when it comes to preparing the future talent?
This is what I was saying earlier. I think earlier I expressed the 5 blocks that we are looking at. Once you have infra that is that extends to everyone, you're going to see a complete shift in how these people approach jobs and so forth, because a lot of things that people do thereafter will be quite highly dependent on internet, infra, the kind of markets that they have using the internet. So this is where the whole digital economy comes in. So if we can actually start the education, we can actually start building up talent, new ideas. We're not talking about startups yet. That's a separate area. I think what we can do is we can actually build a new generation that is prepared to take full advantage and to advance very far using infrastructure. Now, this is the reason, again, and I emphasize, that we must focus on infrastructure. If we don't, and Malaysia has to start, like Datuk Seri Anwar says, I completely agree with you, and we're pushing hard. It should have been done many years ago, but we don't want to look backwards, we're looking forward. That's one. But then, of course, you have different age groups. Datuk Seri, one of the things that people ask me is, look, education is only focused on people in school. That's not true. That's not true, because education, when it comes to what we're talking about here, extends to all age groups. I went to France. In Paris, we went to a particular school. It's called Eco 42. And I was told that apparently, that's of course a school, computer programming, dia ni belajar AI dan sebagainya, very, very interesting. And apparently, you have to be over 31, if I'm not mistaken, 30 to get into school. It's between 18 to 30. So it shows you that there are different groups of people that you can focus. And of course, you also have people who have retired. You also have people who are elderly, who with using infrastructure, using technology, will be able to actually start businesses for themselves, contribute. So I think these are things that we have to look at. The future holds opportunity for all. But the government has a responsibility to make sure that there is access in terms of broadband and connectivity, so that everybody can take advantage of it. We are fully aware of it, we are looking at it, and hopefully I think we will be able to deal with it. I'm quite confident that if we take the right steps, we will be able to deal with it properly.
All right, thank you very much, Wabi. All right, the next question is for Datuk Seri. Ni soalan panas sikit, yeah. It's asking about your capacity to carry out DNA 23. It says that you are currently not a minister. How are you going to execute this agenda?
I'm here, don't worry.
Back up.
No, this is an inclusive government. This is a participatory democracy. There's no issue about ministers know best or leaders know everything. No, we are encouraging a new direction in this country, that we want to make sure that people do participate in the entire process. We are giving ideas. We are giving a strong effort to push and influence the direction of this economy. We cannot just wait. So I think, I must say in humility, you know that what is my occupation and my international passport? In my international passport, the immigration authority has been very kind to put occupation, spouse. So I'm humble enough to acknowledge what my role is. But even as a spouse, more so a good spouse, I have a duty. And I think I'm just taking this opportunity to gather concerned friends who have great ideas, and particularly those in the industry, to say, look, Anwar, you can do it and you can make a difference, because whilst Gobind is, of course, a central figure in the government, but every other department or ministry is involved in one way or another. And I think we need to give this impact and push across ministries and departments, and to the industry in particular, and to encourage other new players to come in. And I think that is my small role. I know I'm not minister, please don't remind me of that. Yeah, the spouse power, yeah.
They're very powerful usually. Okay, right. This question is about small, medium-sized businesses. So we have lots of global companies coming into Malaysia. We welcome them. We value their contribution. But this question is about the threat that it might pose to the small, medium businesses. This question is likely too wide because it's asking what is the government doing to protect businesses and also the country's sovereignty, and sense that in relation to what's happening with Huawei and the US-China trade war. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are two different questions here.
There's two different questions. Let's talk about businesses first, like threats to SMEs. No, there are lots of platforms for them to grow their businesses, but at the same time, I think there is still that sense of wanting some protectionism. What are your thoughts?
I think when we look at SMEs, we've always recognized that there is a strong need for us, especially in the government, to understand that they have demands of their own. And the focus is still to try and find ways by which we can build SMEs, particularly when we look at tax incentives and so forth. I think these are things that we are still looking at, and these are things and efforts, initiatives which must carry on. At the same time, of course, we must find ways by which we can actually build some of these new industries from scratch. I mean, SMEs aside, I mean, you look at the whole startup industry, for example. We got some of the champions here. I can see all of you all on my right and also on my left. They will say to you that, everyone has got a great idea, and everyone knows that this idea can become something big. We have seen Malaysians with ideas make it big, become unicorns, in fact, well-known, what do you call, industries. The question is, how is the government going to assist them? If you look at the nature of business, particularly in light of connectivity and the internet, the world is really your market. So you have to look beyond borders. You got to ask yourself, at the end of the day, you produce a product, and that product can actually reach, or you can scale that business to an international level. So we are looking at a different dimension now. We are looking at SMEs locally here, challenges that they have here, the initiatives in place. But at the same time, we're also looking at how we can build industries here which are able to, compete internationally. So this is something that we are aware of. We have started efforts to try and get into a dialogue with particularly the startups to set up a group. Earlier it was called commission. Some people are not very happy because they said commission means regulation. It doesn't matter what the label is. The substance is more important. Perhaps a group of people where you can actually have direct access to government. I think at the end of the day, once you have a platform which gives you direct access to the minister, the ministry, the prime minister, it's a lot easier for you to operate. So that's one of the things that we are doing. But again, as I said, we are focused, and we are aware of the fact that we need to actually look at ways by which we can actually build our local industries so that they can compete globally. I mean, internationally, you will have companies, you will have groups using the internet that will compete with you. That's something you will be prepared for, and I think at the end of the day, we will have to deal with it. Coming back to the second question, which deals with Huawei. Huawei has been a topic of discussion. Very heated discussions about it in the last 2 months or so. Security concerns expressed, Datuk Seri. As far as Malaysia is concerned, MCMC is currently doing a study. I went to Barcelona. I had the I was fortunate to be able to be shown the Huawei booth. It's big, and you can see the extent to which they have advanced in terms of how it is they are preparing, particularly for 5G. So this is where the problem comes in, because people think that at the end of the day, when it comes to 5G and Huawei, maybe there's a problem. Our position is that we are investigating, we are looking into it, but we have not come up with a report on that yet. But apart from Huawei, I would say this: when it comes to 5G, with others, security is of paramount concern. And that's something that we are looking at. MCMC has been tasked with that. I've actually told the chairman of MCMC, he's here somewhere, Ishal, to make sure that we are on top of what the complaints are and how it is we can deal with it. I think what's important is for us to be able to tell people, to connect with people, to respond to concerns. And this is what we are trying to do to try and deal with the problem.
In regard to the first question, if we want to progress further, we have to attract foreign investments. Our economy must be open. It must be open market economy. Now, we cannot be talking about protectionism at the same time. But what we can do as a country is, of course, to support, to provide incentives and support domestic enterprise. That we can do, but not to suggest any restrictions, because we want our companies to move to the other countries. And we cannot at the same time say, no, the others cannot come in. Of course, there is a concern about a disadvantage, because we are, clearly at the lower end as compared to the competitors of the other countries. But I think we must accept the fact that we need foreign investments, critical for our economy. At the same time, efforts must be done to not to protect, but to promote, incentivize, and support the initiatives, domestic initiatives.
All right. Now, in the audience today, I think we have quite a mixed bag. We have some local entrepreneurs, we have policymakers, we also have some representatives from major tech companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft. Now, these are all familiar faces. I think I've seen them around, pushing the digital agenda. And I think this question probably directed to YB Gobind. They want to know, what are the possible initiatives that will be carried out to shake up the startup and VC environment in Malaysia?
That's a good question. We have to acknowledge the fact that the startup industry is something which is very significant. And I think at the end of the day, we also have to recognize that perhaps this is one of the industries that are going to become major industries in future. So the question is, how does the government assist? What role does the government play? We know we know what happens out there. We know how it is. You've got lots of talent, people who have got lots of ideas. So how do you build an ecosystem that supports people from all sectors? You see, there's a concern that you have people who are already familiar with the industry. And because they are familiar with the industry, they are also able to do things a lot quicker in the sense that they have information. They have an idea, they want to fund it, they know where to go initially, eventually how to make it grow even bigger, scale it and so forth. They know all these things. We in the ministry, we have an agency, MDEC, the CEO is here, Surina, and we play a role of trying to get them together to see how it is we can actually nurture them and to build them, incubate and so forth. But on the other hand, we also find people who have got ideas but do not know where to start. And there are lots of them to see. I have met some of them with fantastic ideas, some very young, who have got ideas that I think can succeed. And of course, this stretches across different ranges. So you've got people who are looking at different fields. So how do we actually connect everyone together? This is the reason why I say that at the end of the day, we must find a mechanism by which we are able to set up a particular unit or a particular area which deals with the ecosystem, provides them with a structure where if you have an idea, you know exactly where to go, you know how it is you can get funding, you know how it is if you need government support, which department it is, and you have access to them. So these are things that we are trying to look at to make it a lot, to make success in this industry a lot easier for those who want to participate in it. So I think at the end of the day, it's a question of how the ministry is going to help build a structure that will help the startups in trying to advance themselves and trying to succeed. We are looking at that, and of course we have discussions that are ongoing with the community as well. This is something that we will carry on. Do I have time still?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Well, to add on to that, because I think a lot of, maybe not say concern, but what they are thinking about is industry players, because there are many different ministries looking at this digital initiative impacting their respective industries, right? So you said there are plans to possibly come up with a central place for these people to go to, or how would it work?
Well, this is what we are looking at. This is what we are looking at this point in time. We have to figure out how we have a structure where you have one a center where a person goes but has access to all ministries. I think that this is something that is important to the industry. Also, one of the focuses that we have now, and I think this is something which is discussed more commonly around the world, is to look at different verticals. And see how it is for specific areas. Then, of course, you have specific groups that can assist. I think these are things that we're looking at. I mean, Facebook, Microsoft, and Google, and things like that. I was in the US recently, visited most of them. You can see how it is, the scale of things that they have looked at. I mean, it extends. And now, of course, there are a lot of people looking into data, artificial intelligence, robotics, and things like this. I think this is something, as I said earlier, we have to be prepared for. A lot of years have gone by. There's been no policy. There's been no focus. My ministry is coming up with policies that will deal with this. We are coming up with a specific AI policy. We are coming up with policies that deals with robotics, ethics. Datuk Seri Anwar spoke about ethics earlier, something which is of great concern to a lot of people. To what extent are you going to go with robotics and AI? I mean, these are things that we have to look at. Data, when it comes to storing, we need a data policy. I'm sure all of you all here are probably also wondering what Malaysia's policies when it comes to cloud, for example, which really changes, everything insofar as data is concerned. So I think the government has to sit back and think about policy which deals with these broad areas before we can actually communicate it down to the industry, the ecosystem, and to say to them, look, this is what we have in mind. And then let's see how it is we can work together so that we can actually try and build the industry.
Thank you, YB. I have time for just one final question. I'll hand this over to you, Datuk Seri. Looking at the Digital Native Agenda 23, how did you see that? What's your vision for the NA23, and how would it complement what KKMM is doing at the moment?
The NA23 takes into account what's being done and work closely with all departments, MDEX, one of course, and the companies, the industry per se. But I think what we want to push is, of course, to give this enormous support to the new players, the startups, to publicize their efforts, to make sure that they become known in the mainstream, so that they don't, because of the limitations of the startup, they don't have the capacity to then introduce themselves. So I think these are areas which we need to support. But I think more important is to look at some of the efforts now in some of the institutions and agencies where there is clearly a mismatch, not only in education, but also in some of the training in the industries. And it is underutilized, grossly underutilized, and still stuck to the old paradigm and the old curriculum. And I think, to my mind, through the NA23, we would like to get some of the industries to be involved, take over part of it, on the condition that these are the training they provide, other than having their own setups. Because we have looked at some of the ministries and some of the efforts, and certainly it is underutilized. It is not giving the training that's required for the industry in the future, or in the present and in the future. I think these are issues that must be addressed, which Gobind has to grapple with, because it involves too many other agencies and industries, and they have, of course, warlords taking charge of these, and you don't. It's not easy to penetrate them. I think MDEC has a lot of experience in this. You can't, because they have their own turf they need to protect. Jadi saya menganggap DNA 23 ini satu inisiatif yang tidak tersendiri, kerana kita mengambil kira pandangan dan usaha yang sedang dijalankan oleh kerajaan dan agensi terlibat, kerajaan negeri, tetapi kita harus berikan penekanan supaya mereka sedar kalau kita kurang bijak tangani masalah ini, kita akan ketinggalan. Kalau kita tidak melaksanakan program mengikut ketentuan masa dan desakan industri, kita juga akan ketinggalan. Jadi kita boleh belanja bilion ringgit dalam bidang tertentu, tetapi kita tidak dapat mencapai target yang dikenaki. DNA 23 ini tidak khusus kepada jabatan, kepada elit, kepada industri, tetapi untuk mengajak seluruh masyarakat, kota dan desa, kaya dan miskin, untuk menikmati dan mengecapi satu bidang, satu industri yang saya kira sangat mendesak untuk memungkinkan individu, keluarga, masyarakat dan negara terangkat sebagai negara yang berhasil.
All right, thank you so much, Datuk Seri. Thank you, YB Gobind.
Thank you
We
very
are really
much.
truly encouraged to hear your thoughts and vision to make digital the DNA of Malaysia. And thank you so much for participating and sending in your questions. And with that, this town hall has come to an end. And thank you very much for joining us. And we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.